All right, so our topic for today is the financing contingency, right?
Yep.
And so one of the major things that people need to understand, we have a two-part test. There's a national portion of the test and a state portion of the test.
Right.
And when we're talking about financing contingencies, this is it depends on which portion of the exam you are taking the test on.
Correct. And so we're going to focus on the national portion of the exam for the content that we're going to be discussing and how financing contingencies actually relate to what we have in our state, a similar thing with the due diligence.
Well, I think we can still talk about both, but we definitely want to say nationally, let's take a step back for just 1 second. I do want to say North Carolina, the offer to purchase is not contingent upon financing. And I think students struggle on the national portion of the test because of that, because we review the standard offer to purchase contract, and we specifically call out in detail that the offer to purchase is not contingent upon financing.
Correct.
And because that is part of our due diligence process, right?
Right. And so here in North Carolina, we do stress that in our classes that financing contingencies do not apply. But there is the national portion that you also have to be prepared for from a testing standpoint.
Okay.
And so we're going to talk about the difference there.
Yeah. So nationally, an offer to purchase can be contingent upon financing. And the really interesting kind of thing, they're not going to call it a due diligence period. They're going to say that this person has a period of time in which they can investigate financing. If they don't obtain financing by the deadline, like they have to, if you have up until the deadline to determine if you qualify for financing.
Right.
And if you can't get the financing, you can back out and get your earnest money back.
Right. And so the difference is that is specifically related to financing, that financing contingency, as opposed to the due diligence period where you're investigating the entire property and everything that concerns that buyer. So the outcome is the same, that you have until the end of the financing contingency period or the due diligence period to make your decision and protect your earnest money.
Right. So it's the same.
Yeah.
They're just calling it two different things.
Correct.
So for due diligence in North Carolina, we have up until 5 p.m. to decide whether or not you want to purchase the property. The buyer has the right to terminate the contract by that point in time. So they have up until that deadline of 5 p.m.
It's called time is of the essence.
Oh, what's that?
One of my favorite terms.
What is time is of the essence?
That's the drop dead date.
Oh, wow. That is the drop dead date.
It means at 5:01, your earnest money is gone.
Okay, so that would mean you've passed that deadline.
Correct.
Right. So wording can really matter.
It does.
We have up until the deadline to terminate, and we can get our earnest money back. If we don't qualify for financing, or for state purposes, if we're not happy or satisfied with our investigations, we have up until 5 p.m. the deadline to terminate. And then once we've passed that deadline, that's where everything shifts.
Correct.
And the buyer loses what?
Their earnest money.
Yeah. So they lose it all, right? So you lose it all if you don't, if you let that deadline lapse.
Pass. And when it comes to that deadline, there has to be communication in writing if the buyer is going to terminate. So that's really key in North Carolina to note that termination has to be in writing before 5 p.m. on that due diligence date.
Okay, and then on the other side, so we're jumping around like crazy. Are you guys playing ping pong right now in your head?
Yeah.
I think we might be just a little bit.
Just a little.
So, but when a buyer is being denied financing nationally, that buyer has to be notified in writing, and that has to be provided in order to terminate and be entitled for your refund of earnest money.
Right, for the national financing contingency.
Right.
Right.
And state, I can terminate due diligence because, man, it's kind of cloudy outside and I don't want to buy that.
For any reason or no reason at all.
There we go. All right, awesome. So I hope that helps you guys to understand financing contingencies nationally and how this applies in North Carolina. That we kind of do have a financing contingency. We just don't call it that. We call it the due diligence period. And it kind of encompasses. There we go. I can speak. It encompasses all these other sorts of things like inspections, investigations, or we just don't want to buy it. Our parents are mad and don't want us to buy the house.
Yeah.
You know,
We
like all
changed
those
our
crazy
mind.
things.
We found something better.
Yeah.
Whatever reason, that's the purpose of the due diligence period.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hope you guys enjoyed the video.
Yeah.
Make sure that you check out our publications, the review books and otherwise, 3wiseteachers.com. You can check out Learn Test Pass as well, learntestpass.com, where there are extra online practice tests that could highlight some of these topics.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.